All right. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well today. My name is Rebel, and we're going to be getting into another episode of the podcast. The first one did pretty well in comparison to some of my other attempts at this kind of thing. And I just want to say thank you for all the support on that one. But today's a new episode. I don't know how long I'm going to make this one. Probably not as long as the last one. I don't really want it to be a super long thing. Maybe just a quick 20 minutes, 22 minutes, something like that. Anyway, today is... Oh, God, is it Saturday today? Today's Saturday, December 10th. We're getting close to Christmas time, which is nice. The weather's getting pretty cold, and I think everyone's kind of starting to get ready for their Christmas festivities and such. I'm not really a big Christmas guy. I think I said in the last episode that I don't know, I do like Christmas time. I like the vibe of Christmas, but I don't really like the other parts of Christmas. I don't know. I'm not a big holiday guy, I guess, in general. I know that sounds a bit... Sorry, I was drinking my coffee. I know that sounds a bit grinchy of me. Oh, you don't like holidays and you're just grumpy. And the thing that I don't like about holidays is it just feels so busy, and I feel like this is always the time where things just become way, way too much, and it becomes so busy, and you're just running around, and all the shopping malls are full and all the restaurants are full, and it just gets a little crazy, and I'm not a fan of that aspect of holidays. Like New Year's, if you need to get somewhere on New Year's, especially if you live near a city, best of luck, because you're just not going to get anywhere. It's just so busy everywhere. And I don't really like that. I'm a bit of a grouch. I don't like that there's so many people out all trying to do all different stuff, and people are usually drinking, and I don't know, it's just not my thing. I do like, I don't know, like my ideal holiday would be to just sit inside and watch a TV show or a movie and kind of just relax with with the people I love. And so anyway, I hope that your holidays are go well in general. I don't know, I've seen enough movies and stuff about holidays going wrong, but I've also heard a lot from people of holidays just absolutely going wrong in like every way, that you see family members that you don't really like, and there's always some kind of drama. And I've been kind of lucky to where I've been kind of able to avoid that a bit out of choice. That might sound a little fucked up, but I kind of avoid going to the big holiday things just because of that reason specifically. Just because it's like, why are we doing this? I feel like some holidays, some people show up just because they have to show up, and I don't understand that. Maybe I'm really selfish, but I feel like you don't have to do anything. I take that stance on a lot of things. Obviously, there are things within reason that you have to do, but for the most part, there are things that you don't have to do. You don't have to go out on a weekend with people that you don't really like. No one's forcing you to do that. And it always felt weird to me that people kind of have this pressure to go and do things. I guess I've never really experienced, God, what was that word? FOMO, is that what it's called? Like a fear of missing out. I guess I've never really experienced that. I don't really care that much about, like if someone went and did something cool with a bunch of people and I could have went, I don't really feel that bad about it. And so maybe if I had more of that, I would be more thoughtful of saying yes to more things and going out and, just doing different things. But I don't really care that much. I just don't care enough about it for me to miss out on something and it be an actual issue. Like, the next day, I'm like, fuck, I really wish I went to that thing. There's not many things that I've had that for. So maybe I'm just an asshole. And I just don't, I don't know. I don't miss out on those things, I guess. Anyway, to wrap up the holiday thing, I hope that everyone has good finals weeks and you didn't study yourself into the ground, and now that finals is done or coming up, you're not in a deep depression. I hope that that's not the case. Speaking of university, I was looking at kind of this might get a little dark. I was looking at the depression rates for university students, and it's pretty incredible to see how many university students are clinically depressed. You know, I think everybody gets depressed or has a version of being depressed, of just not feeling great. But there's something about, I think, university that harbors this super stressful and isolating way of life, depending on who you are, you know? And it was interesting to see the depression rates. I wish I had the rates pulled up. I would be more specific, but it was pretty high. It was like a really high percentage of, students that contemplate, self-harm and things like that. And it's super interesting because I struggle with, I guess I wouldn't go as far as to say depression. I think that's a really strong way to put it. I think I struggle with the stress of university and the stress and all the stresses that come with that. I think it's really weird that we kind of subject ourselves to this really unique pressure. It's not pressure like other things. I've worked before. I've done a lot of other stressful things that required, that were pressure, that had pressure. But university is a different kind of pressure for me, at least that I've experienced. I can't speak for, I can't generalize, but it's such a unique pressure because not only are you, again, depending on who you are, I'm someone who puts a lot of pressure on themselves to try and do their best and do well. But not only, are you most likely putting pressure on yourself to do well, there are also other people putting pressure on you to do well, almost matching it, and it kind of multiplies. It's really weird, a lot of teachers are very, you guys should do well, just study your ass off and blah, 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 and, just don't forget you really need to do well in this final or you're not going to pass, or, even the staff will tell you, if you don't pass this class, you might struggle to keep your blah, blah, blah. And it's really interesting because it's such a unique pressure. I think because of the implications of your future, right? University, whether this is true or not, I have my own thoughts about university and they're not very pleasant. So I won't share the kind of negative and detrimental thoughts about university that I have. But in general, I think university has this connotation that you need to do well because this is going to change your life and it's going to affect how successful you are in the future. And at least at my university and from what I've heard from other universities, they don't exactly help with that. They don't ease you into that way of thinking. They kind of just throw you in and say good luck and hope that you manage, because if you fail out of university, a lot of people, that's the next step in their life, is to get a degree and then get a job and then work up the ranks and blah, blah, the typical kind of thing that happens, right? But there's this pressure with university that I think is unique, where you're not even at the stage that you want to be at yet. This is like the gatekeeper for your future. And the gatekeeper for your future is dependent on if you do well on an exam, or you do well on a homework. It's really interesting to me that, and I'm sure people who work in certain jobs have this kind of project-oriented way of getting through it, where you're given a task and you need to do that task the best that you can. And I guess if you do that task wrong, you probably get fired. I'm sure there are jobs like that or jobs not like that, you know. But with university, it's so interesting because you can't make a mistake. You know, I mean, you can, but it's gonna cost you. You know, and I know that that's pretty much how it goes everywhere in the world. I definitely have made my mistakes and suffered for it, but it's such a weird thing because you know, you're pressuring yourself to do well, and you're pressuring yourself to do the best you can on, let's say, exams. You know, exam weeks are always the worst for, I think, every student. It's always exam week, depending on your major and stuff. But you're putting all this pressure on yourself. And, you know, I think that stress that comes with that, it can't go away until you're done. Because even when you're in, you know, let's say you're taking the test, the worst thing about it is that you could make a common mistake. You know, you could legitimately just make a mistake. Like, oh man, I forgot to do this part instead of this part, or I got this confused with this. And that's it. That's it. There's no, you know, saving grace for you. You fucked it up and it's over, you know? And I think that's a really unique pressure, especially for something that's supposed to kind of ensure that you learn and that you go through it and you are the best version of yourself you can be in terms of whatever subject you're studying. I feel like it's a bit counterintuitive because it's become just remember everything. You know, just make sure you remember everything. You don't even really have to know how it works. I don't really care if you know how it works. You just got to remember everything. And it's a really interesting and unique situation, in my opinion, at least for me. You know, I kind of have a weird story where I went from, you know, education to then working and then back to education. So I kind of got to see also a few industries, a few different jobs and ways of working in different companies and different kind of company etiquette and what you were allowed to do and what you weren't allowed to do and how they handled mess ups. And again, like I've said, I've definitely fucked some things up and felt the consequences of that. But it's been nothing like, you know, being the day after a quiz and seeing your quiz grade and seeing what you got wrong and being like, wow, I wasn't even off by that much. I just messed this one thing up, or I just swapped these things in my head for some reason. And that's really interesting because it's such a unique thing. I know I'm saying unique a lot, but for me, at least, it was such a unique type of pressure that I hadn't felt before. And it's been interesting to kind of adapt to that, especially I tend to be a pretty nervous person and really in my head a lot. So it's been interesting to try to adapt to that. But anyway, it's kind of depressing. So I'm going to sip my coffee and we'll move on. Moving on, I've been watching The Crown lately. And, you know, I heard a lot about it. I know that it's a huge show. I know that the royal family in the UK is, you know, obviously a huge spectacle for most of the world. I mean, even growing up, I remember my mother talking about Diana, and especially when I was, you know, learning about UK history and British history, and it's such an interesting history. You kind of inadvertently learn about the monarchy and then learn about, you know, kind of what it is now. And it's so weird to me that these leaders, or I don't know how to explain it, but the monarchy in the UK specifically, I'm not commenting on any other monarchy, I'm just talking about the UK monarchy, that they're kind of just placeholders. Like, they're not really, you know, they don't have any political power. They're kind of there to just be the face of the country, but they're not really there to make any tough decisions, which is probably for the best. I'm not saying it's not for the best. I just find it really weird how, I guess back in the day, I won't even say back in the day, 'cause it's not that long ago, let's say like 60s, 70s, even 80s, I kind of understand why you would be interested in them, because it's kind of, I think, what makes people interested in influencers now, where they're kind of, it's a real person, but it's reality TV, you know? You get to kind of have these insights in this drama about this family, and it's public, or not public, but they're very public people. You know, they're essentially like, in my opinion, like the first celebrities was, you know, the monarchy, the British monarchy were one of the first like celebrity families where everybody kind of knew about them and everybody knew the drama, and it became kind of a business to report on that, right? And it's interesting to me that not only people cared a bunch back then, and I get it back then because it wasn't now where we have social media and all of these different people that we can pretty much just eavesdrop in and tear their life apart, basically. But I find it interesting that even now, people are still really interested in the royal family in the UK monarchy. It's super interesting to me because I've never been someone that really was interested in the monarchy specifically. I've been interested in how it works because I think it's pretty interesting how it's a monarchy, but it's not a monarchy. Like, it's a monarchy, but they have a prime minister and it's elected through the parliament and blah, blah. It's a democracy, but it's a monarchy, which is really weird on paper. But then you kind of look into it and you're like, oh, they're just basically the biggest landowners in that area, in that country, or probably in the world. And, you know, they happen to just be super rich, and they happen to also kind of be in control of the country back then. So I just find it interesting that we're still really interested in who the king is and who the queen is and all the drama surrounding that. And I think The Crown was kind of a testament to how much people are interested in it, because it's basically just a documentary about, not a documentary, but, you know, a biographical, slightly dramatic TV show that kind of just goes over all the shit that happened. And I've been watching it. I watched like the first two seasons a few years ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years. And then I kind of was bored and I was looking for TV shows, and I was like, I've always heard this is a great show. I'll give it a shot. And I started watching it again, and it is really, I don't know. I like it, but it's really odd for me because I can't help but feel like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why do these people matter so much? And I'm not saying that out of any disrespect. I'm not saying that out of, you know, like they shouldn't be there. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it's so odd to me that this is just a family that happened to rule, and then they kind of just kept being the main focus of the country. You know, obviously prime minister has definitely been a focus for a few, you know, I had like the prime minister that served for like whatever, a month, not even, maybe a little over a month. But it's just interesting to me how that monarchy's kind of stayed in the public eye. I guess maybe less now. I feel like obviously with the I kind of covered this on the other podcast that we did, was the Prince Harry, I think was his name, and the Meghan Markle girl, and how they kind of just got kicked out or left and then went to Canada and just chilled out, and then he wrote a book, and that kind of reignited the whole mystical aspect of like, oh, they left him and now he's writing a book and it's very interesting. I don't know. It's just so odd to me because it seems so separated from reality, you know? And I get curious sometimes what they think about and how they feel about everything. You know, how different their life is and compared to most people on Earth. It's their priorities are so different and their social life is so different that I think that might be what's so interesting to people, is that these people have a really unique life and they don't live like anybody else. You know, there's nobody else who has the same situation as them, of this kind of elite family that ruled the country at a time and then kind of kept, excuse me, and then just kind of kept in the public eye. But anyway, I've been watching The Crown. It's been fun. I think I'm on season 4, and it's interesting because I like political stuff, but it's a bit, I don't know. They try to sneak in the political stuff as much as they can because, I don't know, it's not really about the politics. Like even with we're on season 4 now, and it's kind of about Margaret Thatcher and her relationship with the Queen, and they got into some political stuff, which I thought was fun. But I'm sure there are other shows that focus on that a little bit more, so maybe I should just find those instead of complaining about The Crown. But The Crown is good, is my final verdict. Let me know if what everyone thinks about kind of the British monarchy, and like, do you guys think it's important? Do you guys think it's important to have a figurehead like that of a king to kind of be the face of the country? Because I don't know, every country does it different, but the UK is super unique in my opinion. Man, I'm using unique a lot today. The title of this episode should be unique. But anyway, in other news, I have a long week ahead of me. I have a lot of finals coming up. I have a lot of studying to do. I'm not excited for it at all. But I'm going to get through it one way or another. I don't know, I have a really weird schedule coming up. And I don't know how often I'll be able to do this, but I thought I'd carve out 20 minutes just to do it today and see how I can. I don't know. I talked a lot about YouTube in the last episode, so I don't want to get too heavy into it this episode. But I find it really interesting and fun, or it's kind of reignited this part of me that likes to try different things in terms of content. You know, like I noticed that the podcast was being recommended a lot, but the click-through rate was low. So then I have to kind of adapt to that and say, okay, well, do I have to make a thumbnail now? And then how do I get the title more clickable and things like that? And it's actually kind of reignited a fun interest in me, which I haven't felt in a long time. So I'm kind of excited for that because it's been a nice breath of fresh air. For me, at least. I feel like I've kind of been, you get so busy with university and life and family and just stuff that sometimes you lose your hobbies and you lose the things that you love to do. And I finally feel like I might be kind of getting that back a little bit. And it's a nice feeling, I don't mean to get really deep and personal on this thing, which I don't mean to, but I think I'm going to try to as much as I can, just because I feel like that's more genuine. And I don't know, maybe someone else feels the same and I can help. But I think when I started university, I kind of felt like my life was over. I kind of felt like this was going to be it and I wasn't going to have time for anything and I have to give up everything else in my life and just focus on university. And it was like that at the start. It was really difficult to try to allow myself to have the time. I think you get so busy and you go, I have to study, I have to study, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this because you want the best outcome. But when you give yourself the opportunity to relax, and take a day, take a weekend, just chill out, you end up realizing that you have more time for the things that you like than you thought. And I think I made the mistake of my first year and a half of kind of not allowing myself any time for anything. And I think that's probably why I stopped uploading and stopped talking to my friends and playing games, and just because I was so focused on doing well. And then you kind of realize that that's not a way to live. I think I realized that you gotta let yourself have these things. Like this is what I like to do. I like to record podcasts and I like to play games and I like to stream and make videos and make music even. And when you don't allow yourself to do those things, you really feel kind of empty and it's difficult to cope with kind of life in general because you have no way to, I don't know, not escape because that sounds bad, but you have no way to relax and do the things that you love. And I've kind of been able to get back into that and figure out a way to do it in a way that works for me, because it's going to be different for everybody. The streaming thing, I realized it just takes a lot of time. It takes too much time for me right now to be able to stream even 2 hours, 3 hours a day, because you got to carve out the 2-3 hours. You got to figure out what you're going to do. Then you got to do the thumbnail, the title, the tags. Then you got to go live for a couple hours and you got to and for me at least, when I do live streams and stuff, I get really tired after. I feel like exhausted after streams. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's just me being, getting older and not really having the same energy as I used to, but I can't sit there for 2 hours and talk the whole time and get off and not feel kind of tired. And there's something about being on camera and talking and trying to being conscious that you're trying to be entertaining that's really difficult to do. And so for me, a 25-minute podcast every time I can is a bit easier to manage and, isn't as demanding. There's still things I have to do after, like, I have to make a thumbnail now because the click-through rate's terrible, but that's not the same as sitting down for 3 hours for a live stream, But anyway, I guess I'll kind of wrap it up. This episode was a bit all over the place. I'll try to come in next time with a bit more of a plan. I realized that I kind of just come in without a plan and yap for a while. So today I talked about the British monarchy and the UK, and then I was talking about another thing too, and I don't remember already. I guess school and stuff. Yeah, finals. Right, that's what I talked about. Anyway, I'm going to call it there. Bit of a shorter episode than last time. If you guys like it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And this is now on all platforms. I'm trying to get it onto Apple Podcasts because they have a bit of a different process to get the podcast up on. So I'm trying with that one, but it is available on most platforms. So your Spotify's and stuff. And there's a link in the description where you can click on the website and go to the platform of your choosing. Anyway, I hope everyone has a good finals week. I'm sure you'll do fine. And, I hope you guys are getting ready for your breaks and your holidays, and I hope it all goes well if I don't see you before then. But yeah, I'm going to call it. I got to do some things, and thank you for joining me. Bye.